Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Esslinger.
Here.
Brown. Here. Beck. Here. Black. Crawford. Here. Mosley. Trent.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Now I move that we go into executive session first. So do I have a second? Second. Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are now in executive session. I move that we now bring Senate Bill 778 before the committee. Do I have a second? Second. Received a second. The bill is now before the committee. Now, y'all remember that this was the bill that we heard last week, is that would enter Missouri into the Dentist and Dental Hygienist Interstate Compact, very similar to many interstate compacts that this committee and previous General Assemblies have passed here in Missouri before. Do I have any questions? I move that we do pass Senate Bill 778. Do I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Esslinger.
Aye.
Brown. Aye. Beck. Aye. Black. Crawford. Aye. Mosley. Trent.
By your vote of 4-0, you have voted do pass on Senate Bill 778. I now make a motion to move out of executive session and resume a regular hearing. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. We will resume our regular meeting. So today we have 3 bills that are before it. Don't we vote on that? We're going out. I just have a second. No, you're good. So we have 3 bills to hear today, and we're going to start with Senate Bill 848, and I'm looking, yes, Senator Hough, good morning. Good morning, Madam Chairman. How are you doing? Begin when you're ready. I'm doing great.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Lincoln Hough, representing the 30th Senatorial District, the city of Springfield. And before you for consideration this morning is Senate Bill 848. This is, Senator Beck will probably be quite familiar. This is in relation to some actions that were taken by departments of this state after unemployment benefits were paid to individuals during the pandemic, and subsequently those individuals were faced with liens on properties and notices that they had to repay the overpayments that was caused by the state. And this is pretty simple, but I'll say, as with most everything that we're working on, I'm happy to work with our departments, work with committee members to finalize this in whatever form or fashion we want. I just want protections for the individuals back at home to be able to work through the process prior to getting notifications by sometimes certified mail saying we are going to garnish your wages or seize your property and sell it due to an unpaid balance of something that may or may not have actually been the individual's fault. So it's in relation to that, but more than happy to answer any questions from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Do we have any questions for Senator Hough? Senator Beck.
Senator, thank you for bringing this forward. I know we had it last year and we tried to put it in a part of a larger package, but thank you again for doing this. I think it's common sense. People were put through a lot of pain and had their credit ratings wrecked and all kinds of other stuff because of a mistake by the state government, and it's a shame that had to happen, and we tried to remedy it. Right. So I appreciate you doing this going forward, that hopefully nobody's ever put in this situation again.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Any further questions for Senator Hough? Yes, Sandy Crawford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarification, if I remember correctly, did the department feel like by law they had to do what they had to do, and this is going to fix that? Am I remembering correctly or not? Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Well, I think there was a little bit of misinformation probably on both sides of things, right? As unemployment benefits were handed out to individuals that were asked to by the state and by departments to sign up for those benefits, then finding out perhaps they shouldn't have received all the benefits that they did, or they should have expired at some point or whatever. Hopefully, Senator, we're just trying to clarify the process by which individuals would be notified thereafter if they had, bills due or reimbursements they needed to make to the state.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Senator Hough. And now we'll entertain anyone who would like to testify in favor of Senate Bill 848. Do we see anybody? Seeing none. Do we see any?
I thought Alex Tuttle was here with the governor's office, but maybe he's not. He may not be here now.
You know,
I thought this was one of
there
the
is,
priority pieces.
from this perspective, Senator Hough, I do see someone who may resemble him, but I cannot be quite sure.
That's fair. That's fair. I can't see him here.
Okay. Is there anyone here to testify in opposition to? Seeing none. Do we have anyone here that would like to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Senator Hough, do you have any closing
I
remarks?
do not. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much. Okay, and now we're going to move on to Senate Bill 742, and we have Senator Arthur with us, and Senator Arthur, you may begin when ready.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Chairwoman and committee members. I am so thrilled to present this bill that aims to address one of the biggest issues facing Missourians today, and that is access to quality, affordable child care. This legislation creates three new tax credit programs that aim to make child care more affordable and grow the number of child care spots available in our state. So I'm going to run through a quick description of those. They should be familiar to the committee. You all heard this legislation last year. Eventually, we were able to vote it out of the Senate, but it fell just short of the finish line. So I'm going to describe the tax credits. I'm going to talk about some of the changes we've made to the program, and then I'm just going to end by emphasizing why this is important legislation. So the three tax credits include a child care contribution tax credit, which allows businesses, individuals, and charitable organizations to claim a tax credit up to 75% of a verified contribution to a licensed child care facility. The employer-provided child care tax credit allows employers to claim a tax credit for up to 30% eligible child care assistance expenditures. And then the child care providers tax credit allows child care providers to claim tax credits for eligible payroll tax withholdings for employees up to 30% of eligible capital improvements for their child care facility. There should be a one-pager that I think does a nice job of giving examples of how these tax credits could be used in real-world application. Over the interim, we listened to feedback from child care providers, community members, and other stakeholders, and they gave us great feedback. We've made improvements to the bill, and those changes are reflected in the legislation before you. So very quickly, I'll highlight. For the contribution tax credit program, some of the changes we made. It allows contributions to intermediaries, and on behalf of child care providers would receive the same amount of funding, but this, we think, will allow for more flexibility. It was a request by some of the smaller child care providers and advocacy organizations to increase access because they don't always have the capacity or the technical expertise to make this work. It requires child care providers and intermediaries to have an agreement with the Missouri Department of Economic Development in order to participate in the program. And this contractual relationship between DE&D and the entities to which contributions can be made, it will ensure that the entities are truly eligible, the contributions are used for intended purposes, and that the verification forms are completed timely and accurately. So a little bit of oversight. It prohibits double dipping from both the contribution tax credit and the employer-provided tax credit for the same expenditure in a given year. And it removes a carryback provision but adds an additional year to the carry forward provision. So I know this is a little technical and dry, but bear with me. Employer-provided tax credit program. So one of the changes we made, we basically expanded eligibility to make it more easily available and for employers to actually be able to use it. It does require those employers to have one or two or more employees in order to qualify. Again, prohibits the double dipping and adds an additional year as a carry forward. For the child care provider tax credit, it prohibits the taxpayer from benefiting, again, double dipping, and it removes the carryback provision and adds an additional year to the carry forward provision. So why should we do this? This issue affects us all. It really does. Most importantly, it affects infants, toddlers, young children, because over 90% of brain development happens before the age of 5. Quality childcare, it plays a pivotal role in child development, and it offers more than just a safe environment for kids while their parents are at work. It serves as a foundation for lifelong learning. And by providing nurturing caregivers and a stimulating environment, quality childcare helps children develop crucial language and communication abilities. It encourages curiosity. It lays the groundwork for academic readiness. And it supports the development of really important social skills, which I think you can see in the Senate. Maybe some had better child care than others. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So we need to set kiddos on a path to success, and quality child care helps do that. It affects working families. Child care costs on average about $10,000 a year for one kid. That's cost prohibitive for a lot of families. And we've seen parents drop out of the workforce because they can't afford it. A lot of families depend, single households depend on someone going to work, and this is a real strain on families. Many struggle to even find a spot for their kid. They add their names to wait lists for months, if not years in advance. And we talk a lot about educational choice and opportunities. The reality is most families don't even have a choice of where they send their kids because there just aren't enough spots available. We want to make sure that parents can pursue their careers with peace of mind, knowing their kids are safe. And we should and want and can make it easier for Missourians to raise their families in our state. It affects business owners and coworkers. When parents have reliable child care, they're more focused and productive at work. It reduces absenteeism, turnover rates. The stability allows it allows businesses to operate more efficiently, effectively, and an investment in child care reflects a commitment to the well-being of employees and allows our state to attract and retain talent. Not to mention child care providers are also small business owners, and we can help support them. It affects Missouri's economy. We've lost out on an estimated $1.35 billion annually because of child care issues. I've heard arguments that corporations need to figure this out on their own. They are responsible. Parents need to figure it out on their own. They shouldn't have children if they can't afford it. But no single stakeholder can solve this issue on their own. It's going to take us all. And because the issue affects us all, we all have a role to play. The good news is we'll all benefit as a result of helping address this problem. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions here offline. I know we have some great people to testify and maybe put a more personal voice to why this is needed. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. Do we have any questions from the committee for our senator? Yes, Senator Brown.
You mentioned we lost out on $1.3 billion. What are you referencing exactly there?
So I do think someone from the Missouri Chamber of Commerce can speak to that more specifically. They conducted a study, but basically because of the impact on workforce, that's contributed to a loss of revenue for the state. So they can speak to that more specifically, but broadly they conducted a study and saw that there are greater implications for our economy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Black.
Thank you, Senator. I know after some of our discussions recently, and you notice I didn't even smile because I thought you maybe were talking about my upbringing in Amazonia.
I didn't look at you, did I, when I said that?
No, I didn't look up because I didn't want to feel bad. For everybody in here know how poorly I was raised, but the answer no meant something at my house. The part that I didn't want to mention on here is the fact that I haven't read it, the bill this time, because of your partner on the other side of the building that you know constantly tells me the right thing and wrong thing to do with this. And she forgets sometimes I live with somebody that does this.
Yeah.
You put the intermediary part that is new, right?
It is.
So I tried to go through here really quick and find whether there's any limit on what that intermediary organization can pull out for themselves to cover their effort.
Got it.
And I didn't find it. And I'll go ahead and say this, Senator. My guess is you're probably going to say they're not going to charge anything. And I serve on foundation boards. Sometimes we do a little bit of stuff for nothing, but after a while we just put in a 5% fee on doing other people's work and using our board. And I don't think the right thing is to say pass through, because you're not supposed to do that as 501c, but handle that money in and out.
Yeah.
Was taking enough staff time that we had to make decisions. We were going to have to come up with policy, et cetera. So since I didn't see that, explain that a little bit to me, what you see the cost of this person or this organization being.
No, that is a great point, and one that I haven't really considered, so I appreciate the feedback. I assume some of that can be dealt with in the rulemaking process. If you'd like to specify.
Don't say that, because that's my second question. Trusting rulemaking. After
Yeah.
my nurse practitioner stuff, I don't have a tremendous amount of trust at this point.
Which is fair. So I was going to say then, if you have suggested language to tighten that up, I'd be happy to work with you.
Who are these intermediaries? Whenever they were, I don't know whether you went to the meetings, but when somebody come up with this idea, who are those people that can legally or take care of this? And
So-
maybe somebody in the back is going to tell me all this information.
I think we do have some witnesses who could shed a little more light on it, but it is intended to be organization, like advocacy organizations or groups that are a little bit bigger. Some of those small child care providers just don't have the technical expertise to.
They don't have staff to do this
Right.
kind of stuff.
And so I think we envisioned intermediaries to allow, great advocacy organizations like Kids Win Missouri. I don't know that they want to be an intermediary, but I think they have more technical expertise and the capacity to help connect child care providers with these tax credits. And the way it was described to me yesterday, and why I think it's a really good idea, is they can actually just really work with child care providers or families or businesses who are interested in making these tax credit donations. And if you need 3 slots, they can say, this is how, if that's what you're looking for, 3 additional spots for kids, this is how we can make that work.
I hope that happens. Somebody, because that does go to my number 2. I try to read when I look at things like this with child care, and I told you my wife in her retirement job decided to
I got a
help
very
with this.
interesting email from you on that topic.
Yeah, I started, for everybody that did receive that, I started reply only to Perry, and I thought, no, I'm going to put this out for everybody to read. I did get to sleep with both eyes closed this weekend. She did not bring a pair of scissors with her to bed. Additional rules and regulations, you started to go there with this intermediary. And I'm on the side of child care that we've come up with way too many rules
Can be really
and
burdensome.
regulations.
Yeah.
When we passed Nathan's law, I'll do this on microphone, within about 3 weeks, I found out that my granddaughter lost what? Her child care because of that person, and right choice, choosing a family member over my granddaughter. And for us and our family, things were 100% safe. Good place. During my lifetime, we made a decision to pull somebody away from a good child care provider, but somebody, as the dad and the mom thought, wasn't exactly where we want. We feel like that's our responsibility. And that is something that I want to make sure that's in here, and I want you, not necessarily now to do it, but everybody that's going to come up. Are there going to be more hidden rules to make it more restrictive because of these dollars? Because that scares me.
Sure.
Senator Arthur, it scares me, Missouri Chamber of Commerce,
Yeah. Well,
that when we do this,
Yeah.
okay, here's these dollars, but we are the government, give them to you, so here's another 14 rules
Right. Well,
that you're going to have to do, and therefore more child care where I live at is going to say, no, we're not doing it, we're out.
Right. Obviously, this program would be no good if people couldn't take advantage of it. So I think that is an important thing to keep in mind. I really give credit to the governor for taking a leadership role on this issue. And I know his administration spent the summer reviewing some of the rules and regulations and burdens imposed on child care facilities, and that they are in the process of making some changes to streamline things for folks. So I agree that there is a need, and I don't see this as being precluding those efforts at all. And I hope that it's continued in the spirit of making it easier.
Well, you know, and the other people sitting here, I've been supportive of this for sure, but those two things
Sure.
are something that I want to make sure as much as possible when I now, instead of punching a button, I have to say the word, that I'm not creating more red tape, more paperwork, and more reasons why my wife has to say, I can't watch 90 kids after school, we can only have 70, so you other 20 people,
Right.
you're SOL.
I will report back to your wife that you raised those issues and that you're going to hold my feet to the fire on that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any further questions from the committee for our senator? Seeing none. Thank you. And now we will open it up to testify in support of. Good morning.
Good morning. Kara Corches on behalf of the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and happy to be back again to support this really important bill. I also have written testimony from the Jefferson City Area Chamber of Commerce that could not be here today. We really applaud the work of Senator Arthur. We have found that through our research, through our conversations with business leaders, that child care is not just an issue for working families to figure out. This truly is a statewide economic issue. We also think we want to change the conversation around child care to start thinking of child care and providers as critical infrastructures and critical workers. When businesses look to move into the state, they are looking to locate in facilities that have access to water, electricity, roads, and bridges. They're also looking for child care, because if there is not readily access, affordable, quality child care in their communities, their workers are not going to have a place to leave their children to go to work that day. A study that we conducted with the U.S. Chamber found that our state does indeed lose out on $1.35 billion annually because of child care issues. These are both direct cost in terms of lost tax revenue, as well as indirect cost productivity for businesses. If you imagine a small manufacturer has 5 workers, 3 of them call out sick because their child care provider closed that day, that line is going to shut down. They're not going to be able to make those goods and earn revenue on that. Also, in terms of indirect cost to businesses, turnover cost. When employees leave voluntarily because they don't have child care, that increases cost to business in terms of recruiting new employees, training to train employees, and then also what's probably not calculated is institutional knowledge that's lost. I'm sure a lot of you can imagine in a lot of your businesses, you've had workers that have been there 15 years. You can't quantify the value that they bring to your business and the customers. So to Senator Brown's point, of the $1.35 billion that was lost to the state, $280 million is in lost tax revenue. When someone can't go to work, they don't earn income, they're not paying taxes on that. We surveyed business leaders across the state, and this year found that 80% specifically state that the expense and difficulty in finding childcare is hurting their ability to recruit and retain workers. I think what's even more alarming, 9% of Missouri parents report voluntarily leaving a job because of childcare issues. When we think about our unemployment rate, which I think the last stat I saw was from December, our unemployment rate right now is 3.2%. So if we are losing of 9% of working parents, that's a real concern. We know businesses have countless amount of unfilled jobs, so we want to do everything we can to remove barriers to entry into the workforce, and childcare is indeed a barrier. The one thing to address, as you summoned us, Senator Black, when you talk about if we're concerned about there being more red tape. Well, first and foremost, I do want to say that quality is of utmost importance. Parents want to know that their kids are safe and in a high-quality environment. We also want to make sure, though, that there is not so much red tape that deters entry into market for new child care providers and deters individuals from staying. I think the real beauty of this package is it's both innovative and flexible. There is not a one-size-fits-all approach to childcare and businesses. You know, a bank is certainly different than a small restaurant to an agribusiness in Chillicothe. And so this provides businesses a lot of flexibility in how they want to support their employees' childcare needs. Yes, there is on-site childcare that could be utilized for a tax credit in this, but I really believe that far more businesses will be using the ability to open dependent care spending accounts for their employees. A small business could open a dependent care spending account, and these are kind of like pre-tax HSA accounts, and they could donate $1,000 to offset their employees' child care needs. Employers could also give direct contributions to their employees' child care provider to offset their monthly expenses. They could donate $100 a month. So there is a lot of flexibility to this. There's also flexibility in terms of where parents want to put their children. This would allow, and this tax credit package benefits in-home providers, religious organizations that provide child care services, and child care facilities. Children do better in different settings. I know my 3-year-old is a super social little guy. I'm sure surprising to you all, knowing me. And he was in a small in-home provider. He didn't do as well because he thrives with 15 different kids around him. So now he's in a larger facility and is doing great. So there's a lot of flexibility to this. And so to your point, I think the flexibility to us is an encouraging sign that there is not going to be enormous amounts of red tape. You know, our ultimate goal is just to make sure that we increase the access to affordable quality childcare and also support our childcare providers. As you know, childcare providers are doing this because they love kids. Their margins, their profit margins are very, very, very narrow. So we want to make sure that we're helping these individuals in order to support their employee cost, which, as we all know, is an issue. Childcare workers are paid very low. And again, we just think it's a win-win. So for these reasons, we're happy that this bill both expands capacity of our childcare infrastructure in the state, as well as will support businesses offering childcare benefits to their employees. Employees are business owners' greatest assets. They want to support them. They will have skin in the game. And again, we think this is a great bill. So happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Yes, Senator Black.
Intermediary part, did that come from you guys, or is it
That-
somebody coming up later?
That did not come from us. I think there should be other witnesses that are
Thank you.
experts in that.
Any further questions for this witness? Senator Brown.
You stated that was it 280 million in lost tax revenue. Do you have an idea of what makes up the other 1.3 in the study?
Yep, it's cost to businesses, so economic loss to businesses. So in terms of lost productivity, if a business doesn't have enough workers, the example I gave, manufacturer can't make the goods for the day, turnover cost. So when you lose employees, you have to go out and post jobs, training, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the indirect economic losses to businesses also.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Do we have anybody else who would like to testify in favor of? Please come forward, begin when you're ready.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, David Winton here, appearing in support of Senate Bill 742. Very much appreciate the work and the effort that's been put in by so many people in this room, including Senator Arthur. Wanted to go on record in support for the bill from a litany of our clients that care a lot about this issue: BJC Healthcare, Cox Health, MERS Goodwill of Eastern Missouri, Goodwill of Western Missouri and Eastern Kansas, Children's Trust Fund, Kids Win Missouri, the National Association of Social Workers, St. Louis County. We think this is an incredibly important bill and very much appreciate all the conversations. One of the clients that we represent, Kids Win Missouri, the intermediary conversation was a conversation they had in the sponsor, as well as many of the other folks that were involved in drafting this were extremely gracious, and including that, we think this is a great step forward, and we think this will really help, especially in rural communities.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Senator Black.
Do you know more what that intermediary is going to look like? Or somebody will be able to tell me, you think,
Well,
David,
so-
or show up later, Mr. Winton?
So I think that from Kids Win Missouri's perspective, the intermediary has been something that's been done in a number of states, and it just helps communities pool their efforts and think about community needs in a more comprehensive way, as well as bringing in dollars. It could look different from community to community. It could be your local United Way that's there within a community. It could be a church group that's there in a community that particularly cares about daycare. It's a tool. So there's not a description in here of what it has to look like and who has to be on the board and how it has to look. But it's a place for a community to convene to be able to collect dollars and deploy them within the community. Of course, you're the sponsor.
So, as I mentioned in our conversations, the intention was for that full amount to be passed through. And I didn't see in the page that I was looking on, but on page 5, it does say the contribution, if made to an intermediary, is distributed in full by the intermediary within 2 years of receipt.
I didn't read the word full. I did read that section.
So that hopefully addresses your concern.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Any further questions?
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to testify in favor of? Begin when you're ready, sir. State your name and who you're representing.
Matt McCormick, Columbia Chamber of Commerce. Appreciate the time, appreciate you being here, and appreciate you giving us the opportunity to talk. At the Columbia Chamber of Commerce, child care has been one of our top priorities whenever it comes to workforce for the last number of years, and we're excited and thankful to Senator Arthur for helping move this forward in this conversation. Last week, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce put out statistics showing that at the end of 2023, we had an increase in jobs and salaries and a decrease in our labor force nationwide, making where there's about 0.71 people for every open job nationwide. In Columbia, in our region, we're at about 0.65 people for every open job. You heard what the state's unemployment rate is. You know what that is. Ours in Columbia is about 1.7. And that's a double-edged sword because it cuts both ways on how hard it is to attract. Site selectors, whenever they're looking at our state, when they're looking at our communities, one of the number one things they're asking us is an available workforce. What does that look like? What does that look like in our region? And can we fulfill that in our region to those companies? We need all the tools in our toolbox to help out to make sure our businesses are staying, make sure our businesses are expanding in our region, and make sure that we're able to retain and attract employees. This Senate Bill 742, its three-pronged approach helps do that. It doesn't answer all the questions. It doesn't solve everything. It's a complicated process, but it is the right step in the right direction, and we support it and hope you do too. We talk about a lot on barriers to workforce, and you've heard some about, and you're going to hear probably more about people, their kids and their grandkids and what that costs. I'm kind of on the other end of that. I got an 18-year-old. We're dealing with the college thing, right? So getting ready to graduate. And where am I going with this? I'm going with it in the fact that we talk a lot about higher education being a barrier to, the cost of higher education being a barrier to workforce. In a study done by Net Credit, 28 of the 50 states, child care cost is outpacing higher education. Fortunately, right now, Missouri's not one of those states, but we're right on the edge of being one of those states, and we don't need to go down that path. Child care right now, the cost of child care right now is a barrier to workforce. It's one that we're dealing with. We can all sit here and say stories of people that we've either lost personally within our families or within our companies or that we know of. This is one of those bills that helps us move that right direction. We ask for your support on that. We ask for your support of 742 and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Please be sure you leave your form. And come on up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Nancy Giddens. I'm here representing 4 entities today: United We, the City of Kansas City, the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, and the Civic Council of Greater Kansas City. And you've heard so much about retention of workers and all of the information. What I would like to say is, from a business perspective, our businesses can't reach economic potential with the child care crisis. Our employees cannot reach their economic potential. And most importantly, our women can't reach their economic potential. And research gathered in Kansas City community as of August, if you look at children 0 to 5, there are only enough child care centers to meet 41% of the potential demand on the Missouri side. And I just share that with you because we keep hearing about the demand and the issues and why we can't find workers, and that really, to me, articulates why. There aren't places for parents to put their children in safe facilities. And so we support this bill. We appreciate Senator Arthur's multidimensional approach that targets facilities, that targets employers, and targets, most importantly, the working parents. And we encourage your support.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you. Next.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, very briefly, David Overfeld, President of the Missouri Retailers Association and lobbyist for Missouri Grocers Association. We just want to go on record for the bill.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Good morning, Sam.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. Samuel Lee with Campaign Life Missouri. I want to go on record in support of Senate Bill 742. Got written testimony, I'm not going to read that. And my comments are for this bill, but really also for all the child care legislation that may be coming through this committee or that the Senate will be dealing with this year. And we testified in favor of this bill, or a very similar version of this bill last year, and was voted out of your committee, and we're very grateful for that. After the Dobbs decision in June of 2022, a number of pro-lifers started talking even more about what we in the pro-life movement are failing to do in terms of helping women as they make decisions about their pregnancies and whether to continue those pregnancies to term. And a number of individuals and groups came together about a year ago after study and issuing a statement and came up with a sort of a 6-point agenda of where we need to go outside of restrictions, but how do we help women and how do we help families? And one of those points was affordable child care options that support working parents without disincentivizing the choice to raise young children at home that many families say they would prefer. Studies are showing that women and families are making decisions about whether to even have children in the first place or to have an additional child based on whether child care is available. And for some women, even when they're pregnant, the decision of whether to continue or not is based on whether the availability or the perception of availability of child care. Again, that's in my written testimony. So we think that we're very grateful to Senator Arthur for introducing this bill. Again, we're very grateful to you, Madam Chairman, for hearing it so quickly, and think these and other measures, and I'll be testifying on Senator Razor's bill in a second, that these are very important for us to consider from a pro-life perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Good morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. David Jackson, registered lobbyist on behalf of Greater St. Louis, Inc., which is the unified business voice from the business community in the St. Louis region. I think we can all agree that this building can be a little divisive at times, and I think if you went across and asked, the body on both chambers, regardless of party or caucus, what two areas they want to have an impact in, why they're here, I think kids and jobs are probably a pretty reoccurring theme. We think this bill does that and really accomplishing three main goals. First, the child development aspect and how important it is to get kids access to quality and safe development at a young age when they're really a sponge, as Senator Arthur mentioned. Two, the untapped talent. We have so many parents out there that have to make the decision of, is it worth losing money to go back to work or do I stay home? And we have a lot of people out there who are very capable of being productive in the workforce who aren't because they can't afford to, because childcare is so expensive. Lastly, think about the people scrambling. I know for me, if our childcare falls through for a day and we've got a hole with my 5 and 3-year-old, it wrecks my day. It's pretty hard for me to sit up here and focus and read legislation or, work and be in meetings. Some people do that day in and day out because they're scrambling and piecemealing things together, trying to find, a certain parent or grandparent or somebody who can cover, and they're not focused. And the safety and the conscious to have a clear mind, knowing that your kids are safe and healthy and in a good environment and growing is irreplaceable. And so we really feel like this really comes together and has an opportunity, if we do one thing this year, to unify everybody. This is great. I know a lot of people sometimes oppose tax credits for the government picking winners and losers. We think this is only winners. There's not a favoring one company or one industry. It's really helping all kids and the entire workforce. So thank you for your support, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Next.
Hi, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Amanda Good with the Missouri Alliance of Boys and Girls Clubs, and we want to go on record in support of this legislation. We have 14 organizations across the state with 71 sites. Every single one of them is on a wait list right now. So we really feel that this legislation will go a long way in helping us expand our services for families and communities. We are working with the sponsor's office for some clarification around the line unlicensed but registered with DESE. About a third of our sites are fully licensed child care facilities. The rest operate under statute 210-278, which is a neighborhood youth development program. So we would love to see clarification or just the adding of that language to this. But overall, this bill really helps us expand our services, and we're very supportive.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you. Testimony in favor of.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Brian Grace on behalf of the Missouri Economic Development Council. Availability of workforce is the #1 issue we hear from prospective employers, and this is the #1 issue for our workforce, so we appreciate your efforts at moving this so quickly.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Bill Anderson on behalf of the Missouri Hospital Association. Want to go on record in support of Senate Bill 742. Our team members at our hospitals are our greatest asset in delivering care to our communities across the state. We work with our members to help on workforce issues. One thing we hear a lot of is child care is a big obstacle. We have vacancy rates of close to 20% across the state, across all employee groups. So we're really excited about this opportunity to increase capacity for child care in the state.
Do you have any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Doug Nelson here today on behalf of Child Care Aware of Missouri. Child Care Aware of Missouri works with businesses, families. They do referrals. They do scholarship processes. They've been around for a number of decades, and they focus on really the first 2,000 years of a child's life, or 2,000 days of a child's life, to try to make sure they get everything that they can. We think this is a great bill. We think the comprehensiveness will help, and the different credits will. We see ourselves as an intermediary, just based on our breadth of work across the state. It's something that we'll be happy to talk to the sponsor about, but to Senator Black's point, there is an expense in relation to processing this type of work process. We don't think it's a lot, but it does need to cover, we are a nonprofit, it does need to cover the cost and expense of staff to process these types of applications in dollars. So happy to support the bill, happy to work with the sponsor, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you. Good morning. So this might be your first time testifying. I don't know, but you may want to submit
knock the rust off a little bit.
Yeah.
Good morning, senators and members of the committee. Thank you for hearing this bill. I'm Alex Tuttle on behalf of University Health and some former colleagues on the second floor. Want to go on record in support of this bill. University Health operates 2 hospitals, a nursing facility, as well as a mental health facility, and access to child care is critical for us and our staff to provide care for our patients. As far as some of the questions raised, there's been a lot of work done in the child care space over the last several years. I mean, we've created the Office of Child Care. We've put it under one roof. We've reformed rules. We've cut red tape. Billions of dollars has went to child care. this is just another tool in the toolbox, and we just want to continue to move the needle and move Missouri forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Good morning.
Morning. Susan Henderson Moore, testifying on behalf of J.E. Dunn Construction Company. Being headquartered and having a family well known in Kansas City for over 100 years, they've been very invested in the progress and well-being of Kansas City, and they think that these have some good ideas in it that are beneficial not only to the business community but from a personal and civic perspective. So, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for your testimony. Continuing with testimony, testify in favor of.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Trent Watson, registered lobbyist here on behalf of Aligned Missouri. I won't repeat all the nice things that have already been said, but I think our support for the bill kind of can be summed up in a sentence that Senator Arthur said, and that's quality child care sets the kids on a path to success, and I think that just sums up our support for this legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you, sir. May I see a show of hands of additional folks who would like to testify in favor of? Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Jamie Morris with the Missouri Catholic Conference here in support of this legislation. And, you know, similar to what Mr. Lee had said earlier, we view this as a very pro-life piece of legislation, very pro-family. We know that, you know, work can be the foundation for the formation of a family and for the decisions a family makes. And so, you know, also in a post-obs world, we're very excited as to hopefully having maybe, you know, too optimistic, but more kumbaya moments as to, you know, policy that we can all agree upon that is pro-family, you know, pro-woman, and ways to help families make the decisions that's best for them. So again, want to thank Senator Arthur for bringing this legislation forward and for the committee for hearing it, and would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you. We're asking for testimony in favor of.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Nikki Rexroth, and I'm the owner and operator of a couple different child care facilities in Holt Summit, New Bloomfield, and Jefferson City. Thank you guys very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I know I'm frequently the only child care provider at some of these, and that's because we're very busy. I'm fortunate to live very close. I did just want to say that I can't count the number of times that I've heard in the 15 years that I've worked in early care and education in this area platitudes like teaching is a work of heart. We don't do it for the money, we do it for the children. And while all of this is 100% true, early care and education providers cannot continue to subsidize early care. We just can't afford it. In early care and education, without substantial and sustainable investments, the quality that the children deserve will continue to decline or become more and more scarce. I know that according to some surveys that have been done, Cole and Callaway County are not considered child care deserts, but I have to beg to differ. Every single day I get many, many, many phone calls, especially looking for infant and toddler care, and my wait list at all 4 of my facilities is 1.5 miles long. And I do operate an infant toddler facility that has the capacity for 52 children 2 and under, and it is full and will remain full for a long time. It is really nice to see that these tax credits could create a buy-in from other businesses and the community, helping to shift the narrative to what those of us have always known in the industry, that child care is infrastructure. Mm-hmm. The opportunity to raise wages that would come from these tax credits is an absolute fact. I would be able to raise the wages that my professional staff desperately need and deserve, as well as the ability to bring staff who are qualified and passionate back into my workforce. Over the last 10 years, I have countless people who have finished their degrees and gone to the public schools, where they also don't make tons of money, but it's much more than they're afforded in early childhood. And I would love to have them back. They have a huge passion for early childhood. They're amazing. They can provide that quality care that we all want for the children of Missouri, but they can't afford it. I joke around a lot that I own multiple facilities, and so you would think that I got lots of money, not even remotely. My husband, who works as a social media manager, makes 3 times what I do, owning and operating facilities. These tax credits would help me as a small business owner, an early childhood provider, and as someone who cares about the care and education of children. These tax credits would directly impact the quality of care, which I believe is everyone's goal. Without the intermediary, which I know you guys have kind of talked about, I am concerned for rural areas like mine that don't necessarily have access to funding and staff and fundraising and grant opportunities and someone to write those grants for us. So I do think that the intermediary needs to stay.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone who would like to testify in favor of? Okay. Is there anybody who would like to testify in opposition to? Seeing none. For informational purposes only? Seeing none. That concludes the hearing on Senate Bill 848. 742. And now we will entertain hearing Senator Razer 747, Senate Bill 881. Good morning.
Good morning.
Lots of people like to talk about child care.
Yes.
It's great.
It is probably the number one thing I hear at home. For the record, Senator Greg Razer from the 7th District in Jackson County, here to present Senate Bill 881. This is a free market approach, actually, of solving this problem, and I came to it in an interesting way. Over the summer, I had the opportunity to sort of lead a fellowship program of doctoral students. And these students ranged by field of study. They were different by political ideology, where they came from. And I set them out with 3 groups with 3 goals. Didn't want to give them anything too big. So we looked at how to lower tuition at higher education, how to transition MoDOT from gas to electric, and how to fix the child care problem. So nothing big, just some small things for them to consider. They came back with the one example, and it just wasn't good enough. The next week when I met with them, they had another one that personally I loved, but I explained to them why it would never pass the General Assembly. And over time, we settled on this, which is based on Michigan's program called TriShare. TriShare is simply a pilot program that says that child care costs will be paid 1/3 by the families, 1/3 by the business, and 1/3 by the state. In Michigan, it's been very successful. Here it would be administered jointly by DESE and the Department of Economic Development. Eligible families would be between 201% of the poverty level up to 325%. So for a married family with 1 child, just as an example, that's about $50,000 to $80,000 a year for this pilot program. Employers would opt into the program, and the incentive here is simply that they're providing something that their competitors aren't. That they are saying, we will help you with child care. There are no tax incentives, there are no anything other than the fact that they will be a leg up against their competitors. In Michigan, they have seen this program grow quite a bit since its beginning. The very first year, they appropriated $1 million for it. They had 37 businesses take advantage, and a little over 400 families that took advantage of it. On average, the employee participations decreased their monthly child care cost by $464, or 65% of the cost of child care in that first year. Surveys of the participants and the employers, 82% of employees agreed or strongly agreed that the program makes them more likely to keep working and to stay at their current job. a majority of employers that were surveyed agreed or strongly agreed that the program has and will continue to help them retain employees in the future. And the impact on provider sustainability is fairly limited at the early stage in year one there, but strongly or agreed that the participation improved their financial stability. This is, that first year they had $1 million set aside for the program, and 18 months later they had to add an additional $2.5 million. So the program was successful. Employers were anxious to get in it, and it ranged, the type of employers ranged greatly from manufacturing, child care providers, education, tourism, healthcare, distribution, nonprofits, banking, retail, the arts, insurance. Across the board, people were taking advantage of it. This is, quite frankly, a simple bill. Most of the rules will be promulgated by the two departments. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator. Do we have any questions for Senator Razer? Seeing none. Thank you. You did a good job explaining. Yes. So do we have anybody who would like to testify in favor of?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Samuel Lee with Campaign Life Missouri. I want to go on record in support of Senate Bill 881. I left on the desk there an article, a fascinating article from last month from USA Today. I'm very grateful to Senator Razer for not only introducing this bill, but I'd never heard of this Michigan Tri-Share program before. It's innovative, and he read from the results of this pilot program, and it was really remarkable of how much the employers and employees thought that this helped them in child care and keeping jobs and things like that. In this article, I just want to point out a couple things. This is particularly designed for those who are not eligible for the child care subsidy. There's been a lot of money coming in from the federal government, but that's capped. These are people who are above that cap, which are a lot of people out there. The other thing in it, that one of the participants said that she was happy to participate in this program with her employer, stay on the job, because she got to keep her own child care provider. And I know with my children and grandchildren, that's huge. When they find somebody to take care of their kids who's competent and capable and all the other things, they don't want to leave. And this particular program allows those who have a child care provider, maybe for the older kids, to continue to use that person and work within this framework. So we're just delighted that he's introduced this, and like Alex Tuttle said, this is another tool in the toolbox.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for this witness? Thank you. Anybody else who would like to testify in favor of?
Kara Corches on behalf of the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry, also in support. Obviously laid out our points of why we think child care is important to the state. We do appreciate that this is a pilot program that's an opt-in for businesses. This is not a mandate on them. They can opt in. It is an innovative solution, and we really appreciate Senator Razer really want to be part of the solution and how do we solve child care in the state. So for these reasons, we're in support and happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Nancy Giddens here today on behalf of United We, the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, the Civic Council of Greater Kansas City, and the City of Kansas City. A year ago, I sat in a different committee to which a different child care bill was referred, and I said, you're going to get very tired of seeing me because anytime you see a child care bill, I will be sitting before you to support it. No differently than the last bill we heard, we support Senator Razer's bill. We don't think ideas are mutually exclusive, and we support anything that helps mitigate the child care issue in Missouri.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
members of the committee, once again, David Overfelt with the Missouri Retailers Association and the Missouri Grocers Association, and we too want to go on record for 881.
Appreciate that. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anybody else who would like to testify in favor of? Good morning, David.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. David Jackson, registered lobbyist for Greater St. Louis, Inc., would like to go on record in support.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, once again, Jamie Morris with the Missouri Catholic Conference. Basically ditto to what I said moments ago. Again, like the fact that, we have a lot of innovative ideas and solutions out there and, think this is a good idea. And as Sam said, I was not aware of the original pilot program. And, any opportunity to increase access and affordability to child care is good in our view. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Is there anybody here, anybody else who would like to testify in favor of? Seeing none, would anybody like to testify in opposition to? Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none, Senator Razer, do you have closing remarks?
Madam Chair, I admit that my brain does not function right off the bat in the morning. I failed to say that this has a 6-year sunset.
Okay.
If reapproved, it would have a 12-year sunset. If reapproved again, it would be permanent.
Okay. We do have a question from Senator Black.
Oh, man.
Will you listen or answer? I will apologize. I was running my office for somebody advocating for your bill
Oh, good.
that I dumped on earlier today. So I run out here. But since I wasn't here for the beginning, any concern of yours, and I know I'm not talking about the people that are overly greedy, but this will cause child care provider rates to explode in price. That's what, and I guess it's so everybody can hear this weird mind of mine because I wasn't raised right come up. And then the second part of it, when they were advocating for it, they said it could somewhat partner with Senator Arthur's bill as well. Is that kind of the way you understand it as well?
The second part, I haven't studied Senator Arthur's bill closely enough to find that partnership, but I'm sure they could. The first part, this program starts off so small. In Michigan, it was, I think, 37 employers. I don't see that affecting the cost of child care.
Okay.
Maybe long-term, it's something we have to think about, but not at the beginning.
Well, the reason why I did that, and I don't think I'm not saying here so it'll happen, but we had at home this year, our grandkids go from, I think it was $800 a month to whenever they walked out the door at the end of May, my daughter-in-law's a teacher, the lady didn't even tell her but text her, next year it's going to be $1,600 a month starting on September 1.
Yeah,
And for grandma and grandpa ain't paying it, and for that part of our family is trouble because the other thing that I need to throw in here, they also had another kid. So it was going to be $3,200 a month. In Chillicothe, Missouri, that's a pretty healthy rate, and you and I don't want to incentivize that to happen, and it probably didn't happen, but it's also something stuck in my head.
I don't know how families do it now. I really don't, and I don't know how we have forgotten how important this is. I could make a pretty strong argument that we may not have won World War II without child care because Rosie could have never riveted if somebody wouldn't watch the kids.
Yeah, that's a philosophy for you and I not to do on the deal, but I also got a lot of cars at home, and my parents made different decisions and didn't have all the crap I got. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Senator Black, Beck.
Real quick, I like this. I think it's a very innovative program, and it looks like it's been successful everywhere. I want, if we goes forward and we do this pilot program, I want to make sure that whoever's in the pilot program is not able to get other tax credits, so that we have an issue of, say, Senator Arthur's bill comes through, and that we have tax credits for business subsidizing Artie, and the families being subsidized by the state and getting it back again. So
No
I think
double dipping.
I think that language, double dipping's been an issue lately.
It is, I
But if we can put those protections in there, I think that would be great. But I really like the program. Thanks.
Good idea.
Thank you. Any further questions for this witness? Okay. Closing remarks, Senator Razer?
I'm good.
Thank you. So that is, there was no more business before this committee. May I make a motion to adjourn, and do I have a second? Second. I have a second, and we are adjourned.